Good afternoon everyone and welcome back to Pablo in the Afternoon. Today's topic is the UK post-Brexit. Was it the right choice? We'll have two special guests that will discuss their different positions on the topic. So, let's have a little introduction and get started with the show. Euroscepticism has been a growing phenomenon in the UK in the last decades. Doubts and debates around whether Britain should or should not remain in the European Union has been a very polemic subject. It is possible to say that Brexit was triggered when David Cameron promised in his election campaign that he will do a referendum concerning Britain's membership in the EU. He did this in order to win Eurosceptics votes within his party. In 2015, British voters elected a majority Conservative government. David Cameron was elected as Prime Minister. Even though he was a Remain supporter, he confirmed his campaign promise. In 2016, a Brexit referendum was made with a simple and clear question: should the UK stay or leave the European Union? Now I will present our two guests, which will explain the key arguments in which the referendum was based. Defending the remaining position, Professor Churchill, and defending the leave position, Professor Windsor. Let's welcome our guests. Okay, so let's start with the debate and hear their arguments. Defending the remaining position, Professor Churchill, and defending the leave position, Professor Windsor. Okay, so a very controversial topic has been that the leave position argues that the UK sends £350 million per week to the European Union. Is it true, Professor Windsor?
Yes, it's true. The UK sends weekly £350 million to Brussels, which is a lot more than we receive in return, and it makes us the second largest contributor behind Germany. We could better destine this money towards British government institutions such as the NHS, the National Health Service, or we could invest more in education.
Okay, it's true that we have to send £350 million a week to the European Union, but what many people don't know is that we get a rebate of £80 million a week. So we actually have to send £270 million a week to the European Union. And this is just a small price to pay for belonging to the EU single market, because we get many benefits from them.
Okay, let's continue. Another key point in this debate is that the leave position argues that leaving the European Union means for the UK regaining its sovereignty.
Yes, that's also true. Britain has one of the strongest military powers and is also one of the largest economies in the world. Leaving the European Union allows Britain to once again be recognized as a powerful, independent nation. It also makes them less dependent, or not dependent at all, on Brussels and the European Commission, and that allows the UK to determine its own laws that better benefit their national interests.
Okay, it's true that belonging to the European Union compromises or affects Britain's sovereignty. But it's also important to note that in a globalized world, all nation states constantly make trade-offs on sovereignty. For example, NATO obligates members of the European Union to deploy forces when other member is needing help. And this is just a small price to pay for the national security. Also, the European Union gives us an important veto for decisions.
And now let's talk about the most polemic topic of the debate: immigration. What do you have to say about it, Professor Windsor and Professor Churchill?
Okay, so as they are not part of the Schengen passport free travel zone, they have the right to run independent border control at its frontiers for non-EU citizens. Also, immigrants, especially those from the European Union, pay more in taxes than what they take out. Outside the EU, the UK would still have to accept the free movement to gain full access to the single market. Also remember, immigration is good for economy.
Immigration has become a primary concern for British citizens given that the European Union's free labour movement rule has caused an influx of cheap labour from Eastern and Southern European countries such as Poland and Romania. Brexit will allow for the UK to establish its own immigration policy, which will be fair for EU and non-EU citizens, and will also allow for a selective process such as a point system, which focuses on immigrants that will better integrate into British culture.
But immigrants will do the jobs Brits will not.
Not necessarily. They'll do the same jobs just at a cheaper price, cheaper labor, which means a company in Britain will obviously be more inclined to hire cheaper labor than British labor, given that it's more expensive.
Okay, thank you very much, professors, for expressing your arguments for the debate. And what's next for Brexit? Even though it is possible to not be part of the EU and still be part of the single market, Leave representatives argue that they also want to exit this integration model. Maintaining the single market means free movement of capital, labor and goods. However, they think that the UK economy is strong enough to negotiate a position where they can achieve no commercial barriers while restricting the free movement of people. Given that the UK already applies the rules of the single market, a free trade agreement between the UK and the EU will be relatively easy. During the campaign, Remain voters assured that Brexit would provoke an economic crisis in the United Kingdom and a decrease in foreign investment. Britain's Treasury Department analyzed the potential consequences and came to the conclusion that there are two potential outcomes: shock and severe shock. Both predict a recession in the short run, but they vary in the severity. If the UK do in fact decide to leave the EU and a single market, the consequences will ultimately depend on the final agreement that they arrange with the EU and its members. Thank you very much.